Welcome back to Incremental, the continuous improvement podcast. This is our practice edition for the week where we focus on actual improvements made in the shop. I'm Devin Bedoni.
And I'm Uriel Eisen. And quote of the episode, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The next best time is now. Chinese proverb. Also, shout out to my buddy Eitan, sent over a huge database of really awesome quotes that he's been keeping for years, categorized. So it's cool to know strange people, I guess, who do these things.
It's a very impressive kind of skill?
Hobby? Skill? Yeah, I don't know. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's something I cannot imagine having taken the time to do, but I'm very appreciative.
Yeah, they're fun to read through.
Yeah. It's like a personal Google.
Yeah. So we've been pulling a few from that. They're very good. And when we don't have a good one of our own. So thanks, Eitan.
It's also very applicable to improvements.
Sure is. Yep. I feel like every time I make, many of the improvements I make are so simple once you do it.
Yep.
And you're like, how did I wait so long to do that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting. Well, this is an in-process one. We're starting on it today, actually. Just sent a text about it to my employees since they're starting and we're still recording.
Cool. Yep.
But I ordered several $100s of lock line fittings.
Mm-hmm.
And we are going to update the washdowns in all of our machines. As discussed on the last episode, it's a bit of a time suck for some of our jobs. I think there's an interesting thing. I remember when I went to IMTS in 2018 and was looking at the Brother machines, talking to one of the salespeople.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like asking about chip management. And the salesman was like, well, these machines are not for large chip removal. Like that's just not what they're designed for. And, I think if you look at, our use is maybe a little different than how they're often used in industry and who like the core market for Brother is, where they're like taking a casting and doing like a skim cut here and an O-ring there and drilling a hole. And not to say they can't move chips, but like doing big hog outs is not their core competency.
It's funny you say that. They are mostly used for near net shape.
And like their origin is from drilling and tapping.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of how this machine concept came to be.
Interesting, I thought.
Yeah. And so I think they do a pretty good job of chip removal for the price point that these machines are at. Having said that, we are bumping up against their limitations.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to update a bunch of aspects. And the first thing we're going to do is this is very machine geeky, but the S700 machines, actually just the X1s. I just was talking to somebody on Instagram about the X2 machines. And I think the way they do it is actually different.
The way covers?
Yeah, they have the new way cover style. And I think the front washdown is like your machine where it comes out from underneath the front Y way cover.
Your machines don't do that.
Nothing comes out there, but they have the like overhead washdowns on the side.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the right side, they elbow down with a big pipe to like a jet that shoots across the front.
Gotcha.
But it makes for like, if you don't have it aimed perfectly, it doesn't clear chips very well. And then it tends to like bias chips to one chute or the other. And you end up with like a clog on one side.
Interesting.
So anyway, I just ordered stuff to do a second one of those on the left side.
Gotcha.
We'll see how I think it's not going to do as good a job of clearing the front because you'll have a jet from both sides.
Right.
So I'm not sure how we're going to handle that, but I think.
And this is above the way cover or below that you need to clear, or both?
Just kind of the whole front.
Okay.
I think tends to like clog.
Gotcha. Because I don't know if this would be useful, but I just opened up the way covers to see what's going on underneath them.
Yeah.
It was all pretty clean.
I had the same experience where someone had suggested I do it like once a year, and then
same. And it's been 2 years for me. And I was like, all right, I better do this.
Yeah, it was not bad.
No, I don't feel like it was necessary at all.
You sometimes see photos of used machines.
We're just like,
and I've bought some used machines where it was a nightmare under there.
Interesting.
So I think it's worth keeping half an eye on.
Yeah. I would imagine like having a chip fan or something could really get you into trouble.
Yeah. It kind of comes back to that 5S'ing of just like cleaning things to find issues.
Yeah.
One of the used machines I bought, I pulled the the front weight cover was missing.
Oh, wow.
I don't know how long it had been missing. I don't think that was actually the issue. I think like the prior owner had just pulled it off because it was like not working correctly. But there was like, I don't know, probably 3 inches of caked chips and whey oil that I had to like,
wow,
pry out with screwdrivers and crowbars. And
damn,
I mean, not like pry with a crowbar, but I was in there like with putty knives, and it was not an enjoyable experience.
Jeez. Yeah. What I was gonna say is there's just a big pipe that runs up through the back of the machine underneath that splits off. I don't know if that would be easier or preferable, or
not. I thought about maybe just doing that. I don't know if I'll have to drill a hole in the casting. Like, I don't know how it penetrates the front.
Right.
Since my machine's not built for that, but I could poke around under there.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. Nice. Yeah. So that does seem, I mean, that'll save you guys a chunk of time every day.
Hopefully. Yeah. And then we got a bunch of like just extra hose and fittings for the R450 doesn't have any overhead washdown.
Okay. For like the walls and stuff?
For the walls. Yeah. It's basically like a loop of tube that goes around the base of the cabinet and shoots onto basically the floor of the casting.
Yep. How are you going to deal with like the thing I feel like I'd run into pretty quickly is just like too much flow, like overall, where the pump can't supply it all at a decent pressure.
I'm not too worried about pressure as much as volume. I would like the volume, I think. Which I think these pumps are good at moving volume.
Gotcha. So you'll just keep it pretty wide open like
I think so.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, so we got there's like, that's not true. There's the main loop at the bottom that sprays onto the floor at an angle.
Yeah.
And then there's 2 hoses at the very back.
Okay.
And there's this kind of nightmare back there behind like the weight covers. And there's some like electrical cable like sleeves that come down and catch stuff, and there's like kind of a pinch point in the back.
Oh geez.
So we've had those hoses aimed forward at the X-axis weight covers because they tend to catch a lot and then it jams against the wall.
Wow.
But I think so now we're going to split them and then maybe split them again so we can do both, and then we're going to add lock line hoses in front that we can like aim different places to help with that, hopefully.
It's funny. So before getting a CNC and running one, I remember listening to the Business of Machining, and they'd sort of spend quite a while kind of talking through like chip evacuation and wash down and like refining that. And I was kind of like, is that really a thing? And it's not just a sort of like want to keep your machine pretty looking inside, though it is nice. Yeah. I think the more useful part about keeping a machine looking pretty inside is that you can see when there are issues. That's really the goal. And then furthermore, there's just like, functional, like you don't want to push the side of your sheet metal box out because there's so many chips in there. Yeah.
Yeah. And then like, as we discuss moving towards unattended running, that starts to become a real problem.
Yes.
Just since we're talking about chip management, blanking on the person's name on Instagram, but they showed a video of their Freddy sucking up some chips, and they were out of this very cool little basket, and they sent me a link to it, and it's like a fine mesh chip catch basket
to go under the chute in the back.
It goes under the chute, and they're designed for chips. It's made of, I think it looked like it was stainless steel.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm kind of intrigued to see if that would be an option to just kind of like pick up and dump instead of scooping and dumping, maybe.
Right.
And I think it would keep a lot of the fines out of the sump.
Nice.
Maybe.
Could be good.
Yeah. Explore it more.
Yeah, for sure. Interesting. Oh, we didn't go over the 8 lean wastes right at the top here.
Yes.
The goal is to kind of drill these in so that we all can, it just makes it easier to spot waste. So you have overproduction, which is making too much of a thing. Overprocessing, which is doing more work on a thing than is strictly necessary.
Yep.
Excess inventory, just having too much stuff. defects, transportation, wasted motion, weighting, and wasted human potential.
Yeah.
That reminds me, one of the improvements we've made this past week is adding those 8 lean wastes to our morning meeting, sort of inspired by FastCap. And the goal is, and we've sort of touched on this, but trying to educate new people on the team about seeing waste, making improvements so that they're, I think it's nice to give everyone time to improve things that they see. And I think it's important to remember that we all, when we started, even though like you and I were reading a bunch of books, I think we both did a bunch of improvements that were probably not a good use of our time. And I think you become better at sort of figuring out where you should be putting your time. And so it's important definitely to let people have that process. And like, you have to start failing to see like, oh yeah, I did not do that well. But at the same time, I think it's important to support people in educating them on the process of seeing waste and then addressing it. And so it's something I've been thinking a lot about. And it's hard. I mean, especially because like, we've talked about this. I don't really expect him to be reading as many books on this stuff as I have or am. But I do think it is probably worthwhile for him and definitely worthwhile for the company to work on that.
2 thoughts. One brief follow-up on, we discussed like a bonus to read The Toyota Way a while ago.
Yep.
So I discussed that with my employees and they're down. It was there was some funny jokes about naming very high prices, which is reasonable. And also it sounded, like initially it was like I ordered a paperback or a hard, like a physical copy.
Yeah.
I think both of them are probably going to listen to it, which is more reasonable.
Yeah.
But that was like a point of like, can we listen to this? I don't think I'm going to get through it if I'm reading it, kind of a thing. It's totally reasonable. And then I think what we're going to do is the last Friday of every month, we get lunch out, or I get everybody lunch. And then I think going forward after work on the last Friday of every month, we're going to go like get beers and discuss the book for the last month. And
is that another episode? No. In a bar.
I think it'll take a while for all of us to get through it, which I think is fine if we just kind of like are gestating and cogitating. But I think that'll be a good way to kind of like not just like check in at the end and be like, so what'd you learn? But I think, being able to discuss it as we go through it will be a good way to sort of like stimulate conversation in the shop and sort of all be on the same page in our thinking.
So you're going to try to go through it at the same pace?
Ish. We'll just kind of probably go up to wherever anybody is. Yes. And then the other thing is, I just had this thought when you were reading the 8 lean wastes. Maybe it falls under these, but I almost feel like confusion needs to be its own. It's sort of like wasted human potential, but it's also like rampant, I feel like.
Yeah, so I think there's maybe 2 things, and I don't know how you do it. I think their purpose in defining the 8 lean wastes are like, those are 8 very like fundamental wastes.
Yeah.
And so maybe like confusion or lack of clarity or like ambiguity, I feel like you could stick it into one of these other 8.
It covers multiple,
but
sort of.
If you start looking at these as a tool for spotting waste, I think that's a very good point.
Yeah.
Right?
Maybe we need to have like the 8 lean wastes and then like the 8 lean telltales or something.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. Right. Like, I feel like we've talked a lot about reducing ambiguity, and it is because it just sucks time and like really eats up bandwidth in your brain, I feel like.
Yeah. It's waste of human potential. It causes waiting. Often it causes wasted motion. People are like walking around trying to figure out who to talk to or where to go or what they're supposed to be doing. Often it's like, it's a core thing, like defects are caused if somebody is confused, gets the wrong part, the wrong file, the wrong whatever. I don't know. It seems like it's a key thing to address and like a clear indicator of like something needs to be improved in this station, in this process, in this system.
For sure. And I think the answer that we mostly have is, we've touched on this too previously, but this feeling of expertise. Of like, I waded my way through all the confusion and ambiguity, and now I can make those decisions, and I know all the things and who to talk to and what to look at. Like, I have a really dumb example of this, but our Kanbans that trigger production in the mill don't match the number of parts that our trays hold in the mill. And so it calls for producing 32. Some of our trays hold 24 and some of them hold 40. And so there is this process of like, you pick up the card, then you sort of like look over at the, the buffer inventory and decide whether you're going to run 2 batches of 24 or 1 batch of 24 based on like if there's some left over from the last time that they don't match.
Interesting.
And that is really silly, and it's on our to-do list of like fixing that.
Right.
But in terms of our, the previous episode, there's some bigger things that we want to fix before we tackle that.
It's minor, but it's still.
But yeah, that's all confusion. And then I think it can shift to feeling like expertise.
Yeah.
So maybe another one to look for is the feeling of expertise. When you're like, oh, well, let me tell you about this. It's like, wait a second. Why is this a...
Yeah.
Yeah. Now that's a good one.
Yeah. Anyway.
I think that also like a place that comes up is if you have a question, that should almost always get logged.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because like, why did you have that question?
Yeah.
It sort of indicates confusion.
Yeah.
You want to hit us with another?
Sure. I just made some little, I'm calling them Lathe chuck jaw caddies.
I saw those on Instagram.
Yeah. So we're doing more 3-jaw chuck work on the lathe lately. We did almost strictly, I'll call it work for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And keeping the correct sets together can be a little bit of a thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, just printed these little like holders that hold 3 together. We're going to start storing them all in our big. We've kind of like not had a good place for them up to this point because we didn't use them very often.
Okay.
They're just kind of a backup.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to move them into our big like tool and work holding cabinet.
Nice.
In these little caddies. Similarly, we Kanban them for ordering, just so that we make sure we always have some on hand.
Gotcha. Those are the blanks.
The blanks.
Got it.
So that was a small little improvement. And then this wasn't really an improvement, but I had posted photos of the machine status screens, which my employee found, and I just never bothered to look. I feel like that's a theme with these brother machines. Is there's a lot of built-in utility that we're just not aware of because nobody told us about it.
Interesting.
And we didn't take the time to poke around because we were just like loading programs and cutting parts. So there's actually a lot of information that you can get about cycle time and, machine spindle uptime and all of this stuff.
Very cool.
Right at the machine. I also used Chatter, the monitoring software, which is, I think, pulling all the same data.
Yeah.
But it's kind of nice to have just like hard and fast in front of you, cycle time counter. The operators can use it very effectively to time their movements.
Yeah. So I'm going to, one of the improvements we discussed, was adding photos.
Oh yeah.
And we're going to post them on Instagram, some of the things we talk about in this episode. So I'm just going to mark the cells that we need photos of.
Yeah.
So we can go get them.
Yeah. And we can do a little video of how you get to this screen.
Oh, nice.
But then someone reached out to me and pointed out that if you have your machines networked, Brother has a utility built in where if you open a browser and you punch in your machine's IP address, all of the windows from that screen just populate as like a little browser window.
Whoa.
And you can just like go into your machine and see what's up. The one downside of it is you have like a lot of the information is counters that are like actively counting.
Okay.
And in order to get that, you have to keep refreshing. So it's kind of only good for static information.
Okay.
At least that was our experience so far.
Interesting. Yeah. I'd be curious to know exactly how you do that.
Which?
Like, have you tried it where you type in the IP?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it just comes
you
up.
You type in the IP of the machine and everything comes up, or how do you find the specific screen you want to see?
It just comes up with like a table of all of the machine status or machine monitor.
That's literally what comes up if you type in the IP address.
Yeah.
Is all that info.
Yeah.
Oh,
like it's a built-in utility that Brother stuck in there so that you could monitor a machine remotely within your network.
So that's probably what Chatter's doing.
Chatter's pulling that information for sure.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of wild that this was already here and we just didn't know about it. And like,
yeah, I will say the manuals are so big that they're not super useful as like let me see what's in this machine.
Yeah.
It's more like if you're having a problem, you'll go to the manuals. And then the other documentation around these machines is
minimal.
It's minimal, and it's not speaking of that single point of truth, right? There's a lot of documents floating around from different people about different things.
Yeah.
So anyway,
it's
not very unified.
It's very like crowdsourced, as it were. Yeah, go for it.
So an improvement we implemented in the shop. So at our paint station, when you rack parts and hang them back onto this sort of rail where they hang, waiting to be painted, the spacing was always different. And if there's no paint on the parts, they can touch, right? It's not critical that they not touch. And so the person racking them often put them back on the rail in a spacing that wouldn't work when you went to paint them. So then I would end up like rearranging them.
Do you paint them on that rail?
I pick them up off that rail and then set them back down on that rail. And then similarly, when you open the oven and you hang the parts in the oven, you kind of need to get that spacing right. And it's a bit of, it's not quite confusion, but it's ambiguous where they should hang. And every time I'm sort of reinventing the wheel when I load the oven. And so the other day we just took, I don't know, it's like 3 minutes with some E-tape and marked off on those rails exactly where each piece should hang. And then in the oven, we marked where the things should hang.
How'd you mark it in the oven?
E-tape. It's good to 300 degrees and we go to 250.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that hot. Or it could go that hot.
I mean, I'll let you know. We'll see if it holds up. I might change it up for like wires.
Doesn't know that's electrical tape.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, in doing that, I guess, and we'll have a photo of that up on the Instagram as well. In doing that, I don't know, all these shop tours popped into my head where you see like carts that are sitting on the ground are marked out, right? Like exactly where that cart should live.
With like tape on the ground.
Yeah. And I was always kind of like, that's cool, but I don't know why you do it. I think it comes back to the like ambiguity thing. Like you don't realize it, but you are thinking. Like if you wheel a cart to park it somewhere, it's like, this is where it always goes, but exactly where does it go, right?
Sure. Well, and a lot of people have, if you're in a manufacturing facility with a lot of different people organize things differently in ways that they personally like. Yeah. And everybody wants to reinvent the wheel and do it their way. And so it'd be very easy for someone to just be like, well, I think it's better if we put the cart here and we put that here. Right. And so,
even if it's not an explicit, like, I think it's better, it's just like how they do it. And the other thing we're seeing is this idea of like making sure everyone in the shop is on the same page about how things are done. Mm-hmm. The more ambiguity you have, the more training you have to do. Yeah. Right. And so like Sam was racking the parts and hanging them on the rail. He had no idea that they shouldn't be touching. Right. Because I never trained him. Yeah. And he doesn't do the paint ever. So it's not like, oh, maybe these shouldn't touch each other. It was just like, hang them on this rail. Yeah. And so I think there's doing training is a huge lift, and there's a lot of sort of hacks, right? Like putting QR codes on things that have little videos about how to do it. But that is sort of refining waste, right? The waste of ambiguity. Right. Did we discover a new waste? No. Whereas if you have that all marked out and clear, it's not even something you have to train because it's so obvious, right? Yeah. And so I think a lot of that marking kind of clicked in a new way for me in doing that improvement, where it's like, not only does it eliminate the need to like communicate how it should be done, it also eliminates the brain use of like parking things where they go, because they just go there. Like it's clearly, even on your desk, right? It's like,
Right.
where exactly does my caliper live? All over the place, actually, because it doesn't currently have a home, right? That's marked out. And it's like, this is where it goes. If we're cleaning up, this is where it goes. Yeah. So again, I think it's also just like a big sort of like a fountainhead of very cheap, very easy improvements to make around the shop. So I think we're going to be doing a little more of that, just marking exactly where things should go, labeling them. So anyway, that was pretty cool to see.
Yeah. Cool. I've been revisiting our whole tool management system. So we're like, I can't remember when I first, maybe 4 or 5 months sort of into proper implementation of this like rotating tool assembly concept. And we're starting to see the issues that I didn't, and wasn't able to anticipate. I've discussed them in the past, but kind of like distinguishing between standard and non-standard tools is one big issue. Distinguishing between a standard tool that's been modified from its like supposed setup and not, and then kind of like figuring out how to note when a standard tool that had to be broken down for some reason or another gets set up again.
Interesting. Yeah.
And then also when in our storage system, when tools get their own bin. So those are kind of like the 4 problems we're tackling, or where we're dealing with confusion.
Yeah.
Basically. So in that vein, I had 2 concepts I'm working with, and I started on one this last week. One was our tool tags have been just purchased on MSC, like generic tool tags for BT30 tool holders. At least from MSC, they only come in one color. So they were just gray. And then the tool tag holders that we printed for the machines were a good first pass, but they just kind of they don't stay in like a nice line on the machine. They kind of move around a lot. The magnets sometimes fall out.
Gotcha.
If you don't get the magnets all in the right direction, they all want to skew because the magnets are at the corners.
Funny.
So anyway, so I made new tool tags with embedded magnets. So we'll get rid of the holders completely.
Okay.
Yeah, we're just going to have a sticker on the face of the machine with a number that you can view through the round part, which I think I copied that from somebody. I'm forgetting who you were on Instagram, but I liked your idea and I'm copying it. And then we're going to print them with different colors. So I think green's going to be a standard tool, and we'll probably do
very cool.
Yellow will be a non-standard.
Interesting.
And then if we ever want to switch, I think you just pull the sticker off and move it to another one, or delete the old one, basically.
What would happen, and probably not a good idea, but I'll say it. What would happen if you made a bunch of little steel markers that were just nail polished different colors and they stuck to the other side of the magnet?
That's a good idea.
What would that?
Yeah. So part of this concept is I was going to use a magnet as an indicator for when it was not set up in a standard way.
Yeah.
Because the magnets are in there. We just pop one on.
Oh, nice.
Very simple and straightforward.
Yep.
So yeah, that would also be a good option to like designate standard versus non-standard so that we didn't ever have to change the tag.
Right.
I like that.
And the other question is, how does that like, maybe it doesn't matter at all, but like the cost of all those 3D printed versus like off the shelf with 2 magnets in each, is that multiplied by the number of tools you want to tag?
I don't think it
doesn't matter.
I didn't calculate it.
Okay.
But I doubt it matters. I mean, maybe if we get to a certain scale, but I sort of feel like the benefit, and this kind of comes back to the single source of truth concept of being like the designation needs to travel with the tool.
Yes.
Or we have it in some other place that you need to go and reference, which is a waste of time and energy and is probably not going to happen. And so being able to carry the designation with the tool seems important to me. And I didn't see a way to do that with an off-the-shelf tag.
Gotcha.
Easily.
That makes sense. Last question.
I guess we could drill holes
probably
in
not a
them
good
and
idea.
make little clips or something, but
right.
This was
would be 3D printing just a modification to an off-the-shelf tag?
That's
to cut down on print time. I don't know if that's worth doing. Like something you glue on or that houses the magnets. And I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, that'd be an option. We're going to try this and see how it works.
Yeah, awesome.
I do really like your idea, though, for not having different colors and just having one magnet that designates standard versus non-standard and one that designates.
Yeah.
The only issue would be then if the
if it gets knocked off or something.
Yeah, if the standard versus non-standard gets knocked off, it's kind of like some ambiguity there.
Yeah.
So it's
interesting.
That's a little column A, a little column B.
So in the spirit of PDCA, is there a small experiment you plan on running with the new system, or is it sort of full go? Like, I wonder if it'd be worth thinking through, like, let's try a few of these and a few of those. Let's do a week and revisit.
Yeah.
I know it's always annoying because you're like, all right, we're doing it. Let's just do it.
Well, it's more that, like, I was a little concerned about the added confusion of having two systems in play.
I could see that for sure.
Instead of one system that we rely on.
Right.
So I'm a little bit more tempted to treat all of it as one PDCA loop.
Gotcha.
It's not going to take too long.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And then update from there. I guess that's kind of the magic of 3D printing, is we can just kind of
it sure is
make our modifications.
Yeah.
And the other small part of this is right now when we break down a standard tool, we just have a bin and like the tools and the tag goes into it. It's kind of hard to see, and they're not, the tool and the tag are not associated. So you kind of have to dig through the bin to figure out, okay, so
gotcha.
Anyway, so I think I'm going to make little caddies that hold, when you break down a tool, that hold the tag and the tool.
Nice.
And sit on top of the bench. So it's a little more obvious that, like, here's a thing that got taken apart, needs to get set up again.
You could even tape out an area on the bench where you queue up tools that need to reset up.
I like that. Now we're talking.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's our little updated tool management strategy for the moment.
Nice. So as I mentioned in last episode, spoke to sort of a mentor about just the state of the business. One of the things that I found in prepping for that meeting is I have these like cost of goods sort of spreadsheets. And I feel like, maybe I'm uniquely bad at making cost of goods spreadsheets, but I feel like everyone, it's a little bit of a guess.
Yeah.
Because there's sort of this question of like, how much is incidental expense of just operating a shop, or how much do you try to integrate into your per unit cost of goods?
Yeah.
How, like, are your labor estimates at all correct, or have you totally missed out on a bunch of, again, little incidental moves that just do happen every single time, and so they legitimately add to your, anyway. So
without doing like serious auditing, it's very hard.
Yeah. And so I kind of reopened one of those spreadsheets and did the reverse of saying, this is how many parts we ship per day, and we have calculated X number of dollars for labor. Is that at all close? And it was very close. So that was
that's cool.
Very pleasant surprise.
I think that's a helpful thing, is like to back into these cost calculations
a few different ways.
Or oftentimes we like to think about like, okay, I've got this machine. We talked about this maybe once, but I've got this machine. If I run it at 75%, at this labor rate or this charge rate, I can make this much money, instead of being like, I want to make this much money. This is how many days we run per year. This is how much we need to make per day. Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I think, again, I do feel like it's useful to do a few different ways.
Yeah.
And just see how close they are, or if they're not close, it sort of gives you an indication of like, okay, we're missing something in one of these. And so that's helpful. So anyway, but that was pleasant. I don't know if that's really an improvement, but it, I guess, gave me a little bit more confidence around pricing. I think clarity. Yeah. And then my next thing to work on is seeing where we can reduce that. And then also, just making sure that our pricing model fits with sort of where our business needs to go. One of the recommendations, which I guess I'll share here, was building some spreadsheet models of different pricing structures to just see how they play out. So you assume some sort of like, price to demand curve, right? If we drop this price, how much more demand would we expect to see? And then what does that mean after a year of running like that?
Yeah.
So
interesting.
Hasn't done it yet, but
I'm curious about this marking Kanban one that you have in here.
Oh, yes. So we recently on our QC, for our QC process, we recently, and by we, I mean Sam, added barcodes to the back of all of our Kanban so that you can just fill out the QC form with a barcode scanner. And so now basically when you do QC, you just do all the QC, pick up a barcode scanner and just scan a bunch of barcodes, and it opens the Google form. There's a QR code to go to that link and open that form. And then you just march through these series of barcodes. And barcode is just a font, which opens up a lot of very cool possibilities. Anyway, there are some errors in those. And so we've sort of been trying to figure out how to work through the errors without it being
errors in the barcodes themselves.
Yeah, like a lot of them, not a lot of them, but some of them are missing a tab. Like you can program in a tab so that it jumps to the next cell in that Google form, and a lot of them are missing. So we've just started marking all of the ones that need fixing. And so then at some point we can just go through and find them and fix them. Because interrupting it while we work, I don't know. Maybe we should be, maybe not, but this is what we're doing at the moment. We're doing a similar thing with our SOPs, our standard operating procedures, where we sort of print something out. It's like, here's, put a stake in the ground, like here's how we're doing it. And then we just write on them with Sharpies until they're like so ugly that we go redo it. You know what I mean? It's just like, we're not going to stop and relaminate every single little modification we do. Anyway,
that reminds me, I had a discussion with the crew this last week about like how we would like to see SOP checklists kind of at the machine. And Ariel had this great idea. She was like, why should we print it out? We're already looking at a setup sheet. Just put it in the setup sheet.
Nice.
And I was like, I feel really stupid for not having thought of that. But kind of coming back to my thinking of the setup sheet as being like not just like a repository, but also functioning as a sort of
working document kind of.
Well, no, like as an error proofing document, like sort of as a Poka-yoke document where it's formatted in such a way that the person inputting the information can't forget to input because they have to fill out all the fields.
Gotcha.
And then also formatting it in such a way as that the person receiving the information from the document uses it as a functional checklist.
Interesting. I could see that.
And I just I've been thinking about it from the one side
filling it out.
But then, and obviously I was aware that someone has to read it, but thinking about it, like really structuring it in such a way that it functions as a checklist for everything involved, not just what your tools are and where your parts go and where your WCSs are, but also like, is first article inspection done? Is
interesting.
Are photos of the setup taken and documented correctly? Are any, like right now, one of the things is like, was anything missing in the setup sheet that needs to be added? You have to add it before you put the green indicator on the machine.
Very cool.
We're not very good at it yet.
Sure.
Which is partly why we need to have it a little more visible.
Yeah.
And so like, I think in building out this new system, thinking about that document from this perspective as like, this is a functional checklist as well as being a repository of information.
That's super cool. And also a reminder of why it is important to have the people who are using or doing a process involved in improving that process. I think like, it's funny in saying this, I'm realizing we are both entering the phase of a business where that cannot happen in that we have employees. Right. And so I think it's earlier, it was like I was in the shop doing my thing. And if I improved something, I was the one doing that thing anyway. But at this point, that's not really true. So maybe it's a good reminder to be like, hey, I'm making a change that involves you. I would love your input and your expertise.
Yeah.
As the people on the floor. I think in Toyota Production System, they talk about sort of flipping the corporate structure upside down, where it's like the value at the point of Toyota is to make cars. So the people actually adding value to customers are the people on the production line
making cars. Yeah.
All of the corporate structure beyond that is, I mean, virtually waste from a value add perspective. Right. And
they enable it. Is the kind of
it's incidental. It's like stuff that is necessary to make it happen. But yeah, they play a supporting role.
Yeah.
And so really thinking about it that way as we need to support our workers rather than like we need to tell our workers is different.
It's really different. Yeah. I liked your social media thing.
Yep. So again, from that same meeting, so there's a lot of firms out there who will tell you they can get you good social media engagement. And as this guy put it, he was like, you're telling me I press this button and I get a pellet. And so if we just press it more, we'll get more pellets. But at some point you're pressing the button and where's my pellet? And then they basically say, well, if you give us money, we'll press it more for you. But he was saying that it's a good mental model to think about social media as like equivalent to mining, where it's like you look around till you find a vein, and when you find a really valuable vein, you throw as much money at it as you can. But it's also really important that you have a mechanism to recognize when you've hit the end of that vein. He was mentioning this in response to the fact that I've seen really a big, like 50% drop in engagement on social media, on posts, and on advertisements, like paid promotions, and like basically with new accounts. So with current accounts, like engagement is steady and good. And, we appreciate all of our followers and, comments, and it's great. But in finding new people who might be interested in our product, that mechanism that we thought was kind of like, okay, we put money toward it and we get results. Yeah. Those results were cut in half, which is impactful.
Significant.
And really makes you kind of question the model of, how you've sort of modeled in growth. If you can't reliably get the results anyway. So in changing that approach, we've definitely sort of solved a few things of creating content that would be more appealing to a new group of people. Yeah. And we've seen really quite high results now. So kind of an interesting shift.
Got to learn how to play the strings of the algorithm.
I mean, it's not, it is the algorithm, but it's also just, like I was thinking about this, the point, like, we'll just talk about Instagram because that's what we're working on right now. But the business model of Instagram as an advertiser, right? If I give them ad dollars to push it to more people, they are diminishing their platform if I am asking them to promote something that the people they show it to are really not interested in. So in a funny way, if you think about your customer as the end viewer who you want to engage in your brand, A, that's not going to be very effective. But B, if you add to that list of your customers, or at least your partners as Instagram, to make Instagram really successful at their job, we need to make content that is going to be very engaging to the people we are paying Instagram to show it to. Both because Instagram as a platform has an inherent interest in only showing their users stuff they really like. Yeah. And the second they're showing them stuff they really don't like, it is more likely to drive people away from Instagram, which at the moment is a real threat for them with TikTok and so on.
So do you think it's really that like you've sort of like reached the number of people that are interested in your content? Or do you think it's just that
I think
it stopped being shown? You'd have to think that there's more people out there interested.
There's a lot more people. I think what happens is, this happens like when you're doing a Google search. If you search a particular set of keywords, you're going to get a particular set of results.
Yeah.
And you can read more and more articles and go to the 5th page and 6th page of those results. At some point, you sort of run out of results.
Yeah.
And you need to come up with new keywords. So I think this is where the algorithm comes in. The algorithm has done a very good job of finding other people with associated interests and then showing them our stuff. And then they go like, oh, cool, that is really interesting to me. And then the algorithm has run out of those people in my mind.
It's on page 10. And
it's on page 10. It's like, I don't know where to go from here. And the algorithm is not really equipped to make this big jump into a totally new set of keywords or set of demographics or whatever those things are.
Yeah.
And so I think we sort of need to be the ones to initiate that. And then once we set it on a new vein, it's like, oh, wow, you're paying me and I'm showing it to people who really like this stuff.
Yeah.
Win-win. I will show it to a lot more people and everyone is happy.
Yeah.
Maybe. That's how I'm thinking about it. I don't know if I'm right at all.
That makes sense.
But it's actually worked. Like we've made some tweaks and it's working. So
yeah.
Anyway. Yeah.
Super cool. Cool.
So we have a few things here that we're going to gather photos of and post them to our Instagram, which is Incremental CI. So if you want to have some sort of supporting visuals to go along with this episode, you can find them there.
Yep.
Also, if you are making improvements, even if they're very small, we'd love to see them. Please tag us in them and we can share so everyone can kind of improve together. And I think what's at stake here is efficiency and building a viable business that delivers value. So it's like, it's really critical. And a lot of people just kind of ignore it. So
yeah.
That's why we started the podcast. And that's why we started doing all this reading and improving. And it's really proven to be effective.
Yeah.
So,
you can find me on Instagram at Lycan_MFG.
And you can find me at austere_manufacturing.
And you find us at Incremental CI.
Sure can.
And we will see you next week.
Absolutely. And to all those who have left reviews on Spotify, thanks. I was just looking through them.
Cool.
Maybe we'll read some of them because they're kind of fun. Please review us on the platforms you're on. It helps us kind of spread and get more people listening, get more people showing us their improvements and getting more people from other industries kind of involved in this conversation. So yeah, a lot of fun to see. Anyway.
All righty. Catch you later.